Okay, so let's go ahead and look into detail what Mendel did and what he discovered. So the parental plants, we have a P generation. Think of the P generation as the purebred generation. What I mean by purebred is that they are only going to have one of those traits and no other traits mixed with them. So here are purple flowers. All the flowers are purebred in that they are all purple. And in this generation, they are mixed with another purebred. These are white purebred flowers. They will only have the white trait for the flower color character. So here's a purebred and here's a purebred. I'm mating purebreds here. Purple purebred mixed with white purebred flower color. And this is the parental generation as well. Mendel created purebred varieties of plants as described in the previous slide, and then he crossed the two different purebreds together. This is called a cross-fertilization because I have purebred a purebred and I'm crossing them. This is going to be referred to as a genetic cross. And I'll teach you guys how to do a genetic cross in subsequent slides. What's produced are the hybrids. Hybrids are offspring of two different varieties. My different varieties here are purple and white. Those are two different varieties. And so I'm going to get a hybrid resulting from this cross-fertilization. The hybrid offspring, this offspring, is going to be the F1 generation. So what Mendel saw when he did this in the F1 generation is that all the plants had purple flowers. So wait a minute, we had purple flowers here crossed with white flowers and we only got purple flowers. 100% only showed that purple trait. Mendel thought, that's interesting. What's going on to that white trait? So Mendel went ahead and further crossed F1 to F1. So he mixed one F1 offspring to another F1 offspring. So here, mated them, if you will. And he then, from that cross, got the F2 generation. So Mendel found then, with the F2 generation, F1 and F1 offspring, he found that these guys showed majority purple. In fact, 3 out of the 4, 1, 2, 3, had the purple petal color. But every time, 1 out of the 4 had that white petal color. So, it looks like that white trait never got lost. It started here in the P generation, didn't show up in the F1 generation, but in that F2 generation, there it is again. So Mendel had some ideas. He figured out the gene for the white flowers didn't disappear in the F1 plants, but they were somehow hidden or masked. So always there in that organism, but just masked when the purple flower factor was present. He also deduced F1 plants then, because this masking effect is occurring for that white color, he deduced that those F1 plants must have 2 different factors that they carry for heredity. So flower color character must have 2 traits, if you will, 2 factors that code for this flower color, 1 for purple, 1 for white. From these results then, Mendel developed 4 hypotheses. So hypothesis number 1, there are alternative versions of genes. These are called alleles that account for variations in inherited characters. So here's my flower color, purple and white. These are alleles. They're different. They're coding for the same character, flower color, but they're different. So they are called alleles. Here I can see those 2 different alleles encoding for the purple flower, P and P, uppercase. And for the white flowers here, for this P generation, I actually have a lowercase p. So that's telling me that they're both coding for flower color, but they're different. They're alleles. They're coding for something a little different, whether that's the purple color or the white color. Hypothesis number 2. For each inherited character, an organism inherits 2 alleles, one from each parent. So here's my parent generation. There's that uppercase P, purple color. I'll discuss in a bit what I mean by the uppercase, lowercase. That'll come up. Here for the white color, there's that lowercase p. An offspring is going to inherit an allele from each parent. One parent gave the uppercase p allele. The other parent gives the lowercase p allele to that offspring. An organism that has 2 identical alleles for a gene is said to be homozygous for that gene. So an example of a homozygous individual would be the parents. If we look at them, this parent has 2 alleles, both uppercase P, both purple alleles. This is going to be a homozygous parent. This is also a homozygous parent. The 2 alleles are the exact same, lowercase p, lowercase p. That is also said to be homozygous. But the offspring is not. The offspring is not homozygous. Here's an uppercase p and a lowercase p. I wouldn't call those the same allele at all. This individual is said to be heterozygous for this gene. The gene we're talking about is flower color in this example. So Mendel's third hypothesis has to do with having an allele that's going to determine the appearance of an organism, the one that's actually going to be showing, physically showing, and that's going to be called the dominant allele. And the dominant allele is going to mask the recessive allele. The recessive allele has no noticeable effect on the organism's appearance. The organism still has this allele. It's coded in their DNA, but it's just masked by the dominant allele if it is present. We can appreciate that in the F1 generation, those hybrids, Mendel's hybrids, that we had a heterozygous individual here. All of the offsprings were heterozygous. One allele from the purple, uppercase P parent, and one allele from the lowercase p white parent. And so we can see that all the flowers in this generation appeared purple because that dominant purple color masked that more recessive white color. But the white color is still there. It's still there in the genetic makeup. It's just being masked by the dominant allele. Showing you guys a dominant allele once again, uppercase P, lowercase p for the recessive. And you're going to see different examples with this. All uppercase letters are going to be shown as the dominant allele. All lowercase letters will be the recessive allele as we work through problems together. Mendel's fourth hypothesis then considers the fact that if the parent, looking at this homozygous purple parent here, 2 uppercase P's, if the offspring is going to inherit one of these alleles, we're not sure which one, but it does inherit one of them, then they must separate at some point. And so that offspring is able to get one of those alleles. Same in the other parent. Those 2 alleles that the parent has must separate at some point so that one allele, and only one allele, gets inherited by the offspring from each parent. And so Mendel then hypothesized that alleles for a character segregate. What I mean by this is separate from each other. And this is going to happen during the production of gametes. We learned this during the meiosis lecture, that that's very much what happens. Our genetic material halves during the process of meiosis so that our offspring will inherit this haploid version. Our gametes are going to be responsible for giving that information. This is called the law of segregation. Mendel's fourth hypothesis. Through the process of sexual reproduction, sperm meets egg and fertilization occurs. This is going to contribute to restoring Now, what was one allele in that gamete, now two alleles, we're now restoring the paired condition in the offspring. So now we can see the offspring, the heterozygous flowers that from the F1 generation, that diploid nature is now restored. That individual now has two alleles.